Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Welcome again, my dear students, ninth grade students. Here we are again. We are still in Unit 8. Of course, today we have the second part of your lesson, which is passive. Today we will be with past simple passive. This is student book, page 89, workbook, page 80. For this lesson, students would be able to recognize the form and structure of the past simple passive, complete the sentences using the correct form of the verbs, write complete past simple passive sentences and questions, and of course the most important, to produce their own past simple passive sentences. Of course, last time I asked you to complete exercises 1 and 4, which are taken from listening on page 88. Before starting with our lesson, let's remember together the way we do the passive. Last time we started talking using this presentation, so let's remember together. Of course, this is passive voice, simple present and simple past. Remember this example. How do we form the passive? We just change the order of the words. Instead of starting with the subject, we start with the object. And what happens to the verb? Of course, we said that Mary designs a beautiful dress. A beautiful dress is designed. So what happens here? Instead of using the verb, we use verb to be in the same tense of the verb and past participle, which is passive. Of course, we gave this example about the present simple. The girl buys a new pair of shoes. A new pair of shoes is bought. Buys is bought. What about the past simple, which is our lesson today? The boys bought colored jeans. So we said, remember, we said that we should have at least 3 elements: the subject, the doer of the action, the verb, and the object. Of course, you can have adverb, you can have other parts of the sentence, but at least you should have these 3. So what happens now? Of course, here's the simple past. As usual, we said that we start with the object instead of starting with the subject, because I don't care about the doer of the action, I care about the object. So color jeans, because this is past, so we choose verb to be in the past. Were, of course, this is plural, so that's why we use were, and past participle, bought. So here's the rule. With the present simple passive, we have, instead of verb 1, we have ism are verb 3, and in the past active, instead of verb 2, which is past simple or simple past, we have was, were, and past participle in the passive voice. Remember that sometimes we need to end the sentence with the subject, but now you have objective pronouns instead of subjective pronouns. So let's now move to your student book. Of course, here's the first part. It was taken from the listening. Note that in affirmative sentence we have was. So the Eco House was built in 1985. Of course, it's in the past because we have an indication. This is an adverb of time in the past. Several changes. Now these several changes, plural. So of course we use were made. So was built, was past participle, and were past participle. But about the negative, a lot of rubbish. Wasn't, in the present it should be isn't. Now it's wasn't, past participle. Weren't, were not. And by, some sentences can end with the subject preceded by the word by the museum. So the Eco House was designed by the museum. Of course, if you have a non-human doer of the action, you can use with. For example, the window was broken by a stone, or with a stone. With a stone. Okay, what about 2? Now stop here, please. Try to change the verbs into passive. So all you need to do is that you have to change from verb to verb to be in the past, which is was, were, and past participle. Of course, you should recognize the indications of the past tense. So the Echo House was completed. This is in 1985. Of course, we don't know who is the performer, who is the doer of the action. What about 2? Built becomes it was built. It was built. So we don't know who built it, so it was built. 3, a lot of energy. A lot of energy is uncountable, so we use the singular verb, which is was saved. The kitchen was redesigned. A lot of changes, plural, were made. The old fridge and washing machine. Now we have 2 things, so weren't thrown. Okay, so here's one step, which is just changing the form of the verb. So what about making a complete passive sentence? So look at this first one. Companies first used plastic bottles in 1947. So here we started with plastic because the plastic bottles is the object. The phrase plastic bottles is the object of the sentence. So in the passive we start with the object, as you know. Now it's the new subject. Plastic bottles were first used. Instead of using used, so it's now were used. Okay, again, stop here. Try to change the sentences into past. So they finished the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai in 1999. So this one in 1999 is just an adverb of time, so we don't need it in the change of the sentence. So just we're only caring about the 3 elements: the subject, they, finished, use the verb, the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai. Here is the object, so we start with the object. The Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai was finished in 1999. What about 3? The Chinese invented paper almost 2,000 years ago. We have the doer of the action, the Chinese. Here's the verb in the past, and here's the object. And here's the completion of the sentence. So here's 1, 2, 3. We said that we start with the object, paper, instead of invented, was invented, because of course paper is uncountable, almost 2,000 years ago by the Chinese. Okay, what about the rest of the sentences? As you know, here's the way from 4, 5, and 6. All of them start with object. Then we have were thrown, were recycled, and was made. And of course you can end with the doer of the action if you have a clear noun, like here by John Dunlop. Here's the subject. Or by Swiss people. Or by Europeans. Okay, let's move to the second part of your lesson, which is the questions. How do you report using the questions? It's the same like the sentence, but the only difference is now that we start with the verb to be before the subject. So WH questions after the WH word. So was the Echo House, in the sentence we said the Echo House was, and now was the Echo House designed, and when was the house completed? What about yes no questions? Again, a lot of energy is singular. Was a lot of energy saved by reducing temperatures? Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Were the lights? Now we have plural. Were the lights switched off? Yes, they were. No, they weren't. Okay, as usual, look at number 5. Now complete the conversations with the correct form of the past, simple passive, then listen and check. So just stop here, try to make these sentences into passive. Don't forget that sometimes we need to use the active in some sentences. So in this exercise, we know that all of them are passive because this exercise tells me that they are passive. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Hey, shall we do this general knowledge quiz? Okay, but I'm not very good. Here's the first question. Don Quixote by Shakespeare. So, was Don Quixote written by Shakespeare? So, we didn't start with Shakespeare. That's why we didn't say, did Shakespeare write Don Quixote? No. Was Don Quixote written by Shakespeare? So, because I'm asking about the novel, not about Shakespeare. Okay, that's easy. No, it wasn't. Because we started with was, we started the question with was. No, it wasn't. It was written by Cervantes. What about 5? Good. Question 2. The first modern Olympic Games. Now we have a plural, so we start our yes/no question with where, of course, because it's plural. Were held, which is the past participle of hold. Okay, what about the third question? No, or 7, 8, no, they weren't, they were held. No, they weren't, they were held in London. What about 9, 10, who? Harry Potter. So I'm asking about a singular, so that's why was. And played. No, it wasn't played by Daniel Radcliffe. Here's a question about the singular. Okay. Of course, you can write sentences, general knowledge quiz questions using the past passive. So you are welcome to write any sentences of this kind, or make voice recordings. What about your workbook? This is on page 80. As usual, we have steps for the exercises, so we should just start with changing the verb into past simple passive. Then number 2, we have the questions. You are asked to make questions in the passive. Just use the words here, the chunks of words here, to write questions, then match them with the answers. And number 3, complete the text with the past simple form of the verbs in brackets. Here you have the verbs, and you are asked to make the verbs in the passive. Number 5, this is a 3-star exercise. You are asked to make your own sentences about inventions and discoveries. Here's an example given. Think of any discovery or invention and write a sentence in the past simple. It means tell me about the invention and the discovery, not the people who invented or discovered. Here, for example, an electric current was produced. So I'm talking about electric current, not about the door or the inventor. By Alessandro Volta. The last exercise, these phrasal verbs in number 4 are taken from the reading unit 8, so you can go straight to reading unit 8, try to recognize the meaning of these verbs and then complete these sentences. This is everything for today's lesson. Of course, next time we will be together and we will do these exercises in your workbook, page 80. Thank you.